So we showed off Lena, we showed off Zelgadis, the two banner characters, and now we get to show off Gourry, a free character that you can get in this collab when you farm the event and is able to be at 5 stars for free. He's a very solid attacker that I can recommend for newer players until you get a better one. But if you are stuck with them and want to know what his best builds are and what he's all about, I'll go ahead and show you. So let's take a look. So with his talent, for every 1 buff that he has, his attack and defense are increased. And at 6 stars, it can go up to 50%. Also, he gets a following effect based on the number of buffs that he has. So when at 5 buffs, after he deals damage with a skill, that skill's cooldown is reduced by 2. When at 8 buffs, he attacks first. And when he has 10 buffs, when initiating battle and taking deadly damage, he basically revives. So yeah, this guy wants all the buffs to himself to receive his maximum potential. Getting more than 5 buffs is really good for the skill cooldown, and is pretty easy to pull off since it's pretty normal to have that much. But past that, you'll never really get it just by playing normally. Maybe if you have like the right team, but having like 8 buffs, I would say is like something that you have to put the effort into getting it, especially at 10. It's good for that revive, but that's just a lot. For the mastery stones, for the armor, HP, attack, and defense. The headwear, HP, attack, and magic defense, but you can do defense if you want to. You can also do skill for both of them, which I'll get into when I talk about the accessory, the equipment accessory. Then weapon and accessory, HP, attack, and skill, but if you want more bulkiness, then defense is fine. And if you care about this, the arena set, then I would recommend a defensive one, since he is going to be extremely slow. So he's really going to have a hard time just trying to do anything. The best soldiers that Gourry can use is the Mechanical Dragon Knight. They can deal decent damage while having physical damage resistance, so they're not bad. The Griffin Knight are able to hit hard, but they take damage way too easily, and they need to be above 80% HP to even hit that hard. So the Gallant Duelist will be the better harder hitter, since they do have that crit increase and have physical resistance if you're lucky. Then the Masked Maid will be your second harder hitter, even having that magic defense increase. Hoplite will be his offensive lancer, plus they do ignore class restriction when you are the one attacking. Then the Phalanx to help survive against physical attackers, especially cavalry. Oh yeah, and I forgot his classes. The left one will be the one that lets him hit harder, while having the better bond abilities. The right path makes him more defensive, like a little bit though. But one of the bond abilities is really good. I think if I remember, it was like when he has 5 or more buffs, he takes less damage. Now the best weapon that he can use is the Crystal Stinger. So if you want to use this, make sure that skill is high, and you may even want to consider using Blazing Sun with them, since it has crit increase. I'll go over why that is pretty soon though. If not, then Bone Crusher to lower defense. Mimir can also work cause he'll get a damage increase as a buff when he does kill an enemy, but if you don't have all those 3 or just don't want to use it on him, Seal Guardian is fine. With the armor, the 3 best armor in the game, with the Forbidden Battle Armor being the better one. For the helmet, Aeneas for survivability, even the Vampire Mask. This has a chance to lower the enemy's defense within 2 blocks, but if you have the Bone Crusher, then you don't need it since that weapon guarantees the defense drop. I didn't mention tier cause Gourry should usually be the one constantly attacking, but mainly just because he doesn't have an act against skill to really take advantage of the damage output. As for the accessory, Apex Boots for the extra leg movement, Edge of Memories, which is the attack version of the Dimensional Jewel. You can even use Insidious Pendants, but only if you are using the Crystal Stinger having skill for your Mastery Stones. This thing gives a 5% increase to your stats and more crit rate. Now, if you are following with this kind of build, Crystal Stinger, skill increase for your Mastery Stone, and this accessory, then Blazing Sun is something that you want. Now why we build him like this is cause we're setting up a bunch of crit rate increase for Gourry, so that he can hit hard, since he's just a damage dealer. Then you're gonna want Blazing Sun with this kind of build. The 2-piece gives 7% more crit rate, and the full 4-piece gives 25% crit damage. But if you're not following along with this kind of build, then Breeze will be great, even Full Moon for flexible stats. Alright, so hopefully that was all helpful for some of you guys. So to those having trouble with the first Awakening stage, I'll help walk you guys through it. Alright, so for this one you can be up against Maya, Zelgadis, and then finally, Lena. Yeah, I can see this logo right here. Now having that as 1C is something that you really want. Mobility increase and having HP restore after battle, which can be pretty clutch if you can survive their attacks. Air Slash since it has a low cooldown while being a good skill in general, and you could do the defense break, but if you have Bone Crusher, then you don't really need it, but if you feel like this thing will be helpful, then go for it. The last skill can also be Sword Soul, since it's just a very powerful skill. His unique 2C, I would say like maybe you could use on him because typically you're usually trying to one-shot them. But if you are in a situation where like they're gonna survive after your attacks, then this could be really useful to lower their attack or int. Now the soldier that you want to use is a Gallant Duelist. They're going to be the one hitting the hardest. Maskmate would be like your second best, and also they have the magic defense increase, so that could be useful against all the enemy. Now with Maya, you can literally just go up to her and try to kill her. You should really be able to kill her pretty easily because her stats are incredibly low. But if you do attack her on the first turn, Zelgadis will come after you and use his Act Again skill to either single target you or AoE. So if Zelgadis is giving you trouble, then just hang back. Also, Breeze will be super beneficial here to deal with, especially Lina. Now you are forced to take damage from Maya if you are trying to stay away from Zelgadis, but that's just how it's going to be if you want to try to stay away from Zelgadis. So just stay out of Maya's attack range and you should be fine. And so to deal with Zelgadis, he's going to waste his Act Again skill and then charge after you. So stay 2 blocks away from him and it'll be that simple. He will use his talent buff and is able to get additional buffs like defense increase. And another thing about Zelgadis is that he can be physically tanky because he has that defense increase in his talent. So if you have Sword Soul or maybe even like his unique 2C, this is where you can use it to hit really hard. And so with the buffs that you gathered and with Lina being a glass cannon, you're ready to deal with the final enemy. Now this is the part where it's like really RNG if you're like maybe trying to get away from Lina's range, which is pretty hard because it lasts a good while and Gourry's mobility is so very restricted. Like right now I am pretty scared right now, so I'm gonna try my best to avoid Lina, especially with the mass attack that she gave herself. Well, let's see if you can try or play it safe, stay in that corner. Unfortunate for me because I have no mobility increase and Lina got her transformation effect. But what I was really doing is trying to stall out her buffs because she does have mass attack and that will be pretty scary. That'll be the first thing that she does when you kill Zelgadis. So if you're at this point with me, you're going to be forced to take the 50-50. It's something that you're going to really have to try. And lucky for me, I got the mobility increase and we got the lucky 50-50 where Lina just comes after you and uses her mass attack. And so I just get to attack her for free. Lina is someone that you might have to tank, so if you play it really well, you can get really lucky right there. If you are not able to survive her AoE. For sure you'll be able to one-shot her at that point, but surviving her attacks may be pretty risky. And so if you do survive her attack, just go straight after her because then she'll just use her buffs. And the thing about AI enemies is that they always use the skills whenever they can, except for like certain type of skills. Try to rely on that little RNG right there, just wait out her buff and then take that chance. And now with this 3C, a 3-turn cooldown that can reach 2 blocks long. The passive does more damage against demons, which is pretty lame. It's a single target that does more damage for each buff that he has up to 30%, so that caps out at like 10. Melee soldiers can attack with them, and after using the skill, any buffs on him do not lose their turn duration. So yeah, they really encourage you to give him a ton of buffs, and it's the same way with his talent, to get all of his benefits. Alright, so if you guys are curious, this is what his 3C animation looks like. Alright, so anyone new around here, I don't show up the second awakening stage unless they are pretty difficult to deal with, because you do get 3 other characters that you can use, and they're all you need to get through it. And plus you have Lina, one of the strongest magic attackers that we have in the game, and you will make the right decisions where the AI would not. So yeah, like 90% of these are never really difficult at all, or at least that difficult. But yeah, let's get right onto his showcase. Alright, so we're gonna recap. For every 1 buff that he has, his attack and defense are increased. He will also gain the following effect based on the number of buffs. When he has 5 or more, after dealing damage with a skill, that skill's cooldown is reduced by 2. When at 8 or more, he attacks first. And at 10, when initiating battle, he can basically revive. So right now we are doing one of the Secret Realm stage, and this is technically a buff, right? Well, for some reason, it doesn't count. You see, if I put tiers like right next to him, it will show an indicator telling you how many buffs that he has. So right now he has 1, so his attack and defense are increased. And then if I get Ashmare to start with them, mobility increase, and then her talent buff, giving that stat increase. So now Gourry has 2 additional buffs. Ashmare's talent buff does give him a stat increase, and if that's not enough to show you guys, let's go ahead and use Sissy White. Give Gourry a buff, now it's at 4. Got a little bit of increase right there. So if we go ahead and actually look, Gourry at 3 buffs, including Ashmare's talent buff, his attack is at 1800 and defense at 1000. And so once Sissy White applied her buff, we check Gourry again, that attack and defense did increase a little bit. Another interesting part about Gourry is that command effects will also take effect too. So it went from 4 to 6. You guys want more? Okay, so the component. You see that? You see our number get changed right there? So now he's at 7, gotta increase a little bit more. Use the component skill, which for some reason doesn't count. So yeah, command effect and the typical buffs that you get, like mobility increase, immune to like all debuffs or something, all count towards Gourry. But some of the unique ones like the components and the Secret Realm one do not count. Okay, so we're gonna backtrack a little bit to take a look at the effects. His skill's cooldown is reduced by 2 whenever he uses it. So let's go ahead and use his 2C, which does have a 2-turn cooldown. So I'm gonna go ahead and use it, and it should be ready to be used again on the next turn. So it's doing its thing, and it does have a pop-up effect showing the cooldown. So we take a look at Gourry, his 2C is ready to be used again. And with 8 or more, he can attack first, which is cool and all, but it's something that you don't really necessarily have to go the extra effort into getting it. Like it's something that you don't really need to chase after. It's not worth the effort. And then at 10 or more buffs, he has a revive effect. Now it doesn't tell you, but I do want to see like if I attack the dragon, would we see the thing? Okay, so no it doesn't, but yeah, you still keep all the effects because it carries over. This is something that you won't get normally just by playing it because it requires extra effort to get, but even so, I wish they made it a little bit obvious that it's there. Alright, so we're gonna backtrack to take a look at the skills. His 1C gives him 1 mobility and recovers 15% of his HP after battle. So this works both ways, whenever he initiates battle and after he gets attacked. And the nice detail about it is that it does do a pop-up, which is something that I really like to see. It's just that for me, I like to see that kind of detail to help me focus on the game, so I know what's going on. Even though it does happen like for a second, it just helps me pay attention. And then with this unique 2C, cooldown is 2 turns, it's a single target before battle. For each of the enemy stats that is higher than his, this skill does 10% more damage. Then after battle, he reduces the enemy stats that is higher by 10% and increases his own by 10% for 2 turns. So in total, it does add up to a 50% damage increase. But one problem, 90% of the time, you will never get that 50% damage increase. Let me tell you why. Gourry can scale his attack and defense really high, and his skill can be high too. Look at Gourry's, look at the dragon. All of it are higher except for the skill. So then if you go ahead and attack the dragon, its attack and int, defense and magic defense will be reduced. And then Gourry will get those buffs for himself. And since those stats are high, Gourry will get a attack and int buff and defense and magic defense. And you may be asking, why does he get an int boost? Well, the thing about attack and int is that they're categorized as the same type of buff. So yeah, 10% across the board. Take a look at the dragon, minus 10%. You are able to lower skill as well, but the dragon's skill is at 16 for some reason, and looks like they forgot the extra L. And then lastly, with this 3C, 3-turn cooldown that can reach 2 blocks long. The passive on it lets you do more damage to demons, which is pretty lame. It's a single target that does more damage for each buff on them. Melee soldiers can attack with them, and buffs on them do not lose their turn duration after using this skill, and is not affected by melee damage reduction. The max amount of damage will be 30%, and while doing this, we're going to be taking advantage of Gourry's talent. So let's go ahead and stack as much buffs on Gourry as we can. Now we're talking, look at that. 10 buffs, and look at all the stuff that he has. 2400 attack, 1300 defense. So real quick, I'm going to put Ashman right here so that we can take advantage of her talent. And let's see how much damage this does. Okay, so with the crit, that was 151,000. So we go ahead and take a look at Gourry again. All of his buffs retain the same duration. I did not expect a one-shot because that requires proper setup. So overall, Gourry is a fantastic damage dealer. Honestly, just having 5 buffs on him for the skill cooldown is good enough, so he can keep the high damage rolling. I really do like his passive that gives him the extra mobility and recovers some HP. It's very similar to Sherry's passive, but more weaker. He's gonna be someone that wants all the buffs to himself, and the worst of it all is that he doesn't really give himself any, besides his 2C skill, which requires you to attack. So you give him what he needs, and he'll do tons of damage for you. No need to really try to get 8 or 10 buffs. Like, yeah, they're good, it requires some extra effort, so it's not really necessary to chase after. For a free character, his attack and defense scales so much higher than anyone else in the game, while being a great consistent damage dealer. But I would say mainly in those longer fights. There you guys have it. That was Gourry's showcase. Even with all that praise, I still recommend having a better attacker like Leon, Elwyn, and Sherry, cause those characters have a lot more utility compared to Gourry. Gourry is way too slow with no real usefulness to further increase his offensive capability. Sure, you may one-shot with them, but if you get someone like Sherry, who can also do that, who can act again and get a double kill, and can heal himself with his skills. And someone like Leon, he also has an at again skill who can attack and move back safely. So that's why it's better off to replace him with those type of characters. Gourry's main benefit is when he is attacking, and those benefits are a lot more prominent in some of the longer fights like Ancient Beckoning, and that's where you'll see him shine the most. But that's all I got for you guys. If you did enjoy this video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more, and feel free to let me know down in the comments what you guys think about Gourry. So yeah, thanks for watching. Your fellow Z.